Okay, good day everyone, and welcome to the second of our webinars on the procurement pipeline of the Caribbean Development Bank. I'm Michelle Marius, the founder of Project Calls. In this session, the procurement plans and pipeline for the following areas will be the focus: infrastructure, water and sanitation, and renewable energy and energy efficiency. Joining us today will be managing the proceedings are Douglas Fraser, the head of procurement, and Joanna Pelez, the procurement expert, both from the Caribbean Development Bank. Before I hand you over to Joanna and Doug, just a few housekeeping matters, please. We have a tight schedule. As much as we have earmarked an hour and a half, it blows by pretty quickly, so we'll ask you not to interrupt the presentations to ask questions. We invite you to ask your questions in the chat and they will be addressed by the presenters at the appropriate time. Please ensure that you are and remain muted during the presentations. And should we not be able to get through all of the questions during the time allotted, we will have those questions answered and will advise at a later date. So thank you once again for joining us, and I now invite Doug and Joanna to lead us through the proceedings.
Thank you, Michelle, and morning, everybody. I'd like to say a big thank you to Michelle and to Project Calls for arranging this webinar this morning. Michelle said it was the second, but actually, I believe it's actually the third. We had one initial one where we spoke about the CDB procurement framework and how to access opportunities with the bank. And then we had one, I believe it was last week, where colleagues from the bank spoke about opportunities in terms of technical assistance in the social sector field and in the environmental field. And I think that was quite a good session and some conversation around that. For those who didn't join those earlier webinars, I would recommend you have a look at the procurement section of our website to see the current opportunities. And there is a facility there to sign up for a weekly newsletter as well, notwithstanding, of course, the information you receive from Project Calls. So today, I'm joined by some colleagues from CDB. And as Michelle said, we have a couple of areas we're going to be tackling this morning. So my colleague, Mr. William Ashby, who's the portfolio manager for our Economic Infrastructure Division, we'll be speaking about economic infrastructure opportunities. And we're also joined by a colleague from our Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Unit, Christopher Strout. He's our Sustainable Energy Analyst. So I would invite you to enjoy those presentations and please take the opportunity to ask any questions. I believe at this point we're handing over to William, who's going to open proceedings with a presentation on the economic infrastructure.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. And can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen well now.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. So this is going to be just a quick run through of the work of the Economic Infrastructure Division. If at any point my voice starts to drift, just let me know. I'm not sure exactly which microphone you're hearing me through, so hopefully it's my headset and you'll hear me well. So the Economic Infrastructure Division of CDB. The work that we are responsible for largely includes the preparation and appraisal and the supervision of all of the economic infrastructure projects the bank undertakes or supports its borrowing member countries in. We're also responsible for immediate response and rehabilitation activities under the disaster management strategy and operational guidelines. You would have heard about that, I think, when our colleagues from the Environmental Sustainability Unit spoke last week, those of you who participated there. We provide technical assistance to our borrowing member countries. That is often independent of investment projects, but it's also included in our investment projects. So project preparation activities will form part of the technical assistance that we provide to help our BMCs to prepare projects that the bank might, investment projects that the bank might later finance. In EID, as we're called, we also provide fiduciary management support for the bank's portfolio of projects. So a number of financial analysts are part of the EID team. We've undertake a lot of sector studies, and at the moment at the front of our burner really, we've got an urban sector study that's been completed really, and that is to inform the bank's new urban sector policy and strategy. And similarly, in the transport sector, we've completed a sector study and we're about to update our transport sector policy and strategy. We're doing at the moment as well some work in public transport, and that's going to be one of the procurement opportunities that you will see shortly, as well as some similar work updating the bank's water sector policy and strategy. And we provide lots of technical support to our internal partners, for example, in the social sector division, working on their education portfolio. And I know Dr. Baptiste would have spoken about the work being done under that portfolio last week as well. So the main sectors of operation of the bank through Economic Infrastructure Division. You'll see a lot of the work that we do is in the transport sector. So roads, airports, and seaports take up a lot of the work of the bank. Water and sanitation is another big one for us. Energy is where, well, we had a long history working in conventional power and energy, and now we support the renewable energy and energy efficiency unit quite heavily in that portfolio as well. So Joseph will speak about that some more later on. Sea defenses or coastal protection is another big area for us. I mentioned the work in urban development as well as rural infrastructure. And tourism sites is one of the areas that we're also responsible for. There's not been a lot of activity in that sector for us in more recent years, but in the past, projects such as the redevelopment of Harrison's Cave and heritage tourism work in Dominica have been things the bank has undertaken. Solid waste management is another key sector for us. At the moment, we're supporting Grenada with an integrated solid waste management project. We've got technical assistance projects in early stages of implementation in the Turks and Caicos Islands, as well as in St. Lucia. Well, those have been approved, and yes, those should be procurement opportunities that'll be coming up for consulting services before too long as well. And we mentioned the work under DIMSOG. So in terms of how that the various sectors have been split through the financing the bank has approved. So since 1970, you'll see transportation has been the beneficiary of about 21% of the funds the bank has approved, and it will be more. Hello?
I don't know.
Pardon me? Hello? Okay, I'm assuming you can still hear me. Transportation would have been a beneficiary of about 21% of the funds approved. And as I was saying, there will be other transportation projects captured under multi-sector and other, as well as in some of the disaster risk reduction work that you see there. And indeed, in the social infrastructure and services, some of that would also be transportation related. You will see power, water, and energy together taking up about 12% of the resources approved. And as I mentioned before, some of the other categories would also include some energy and water and sanitation projects, for example. So that shows you from 1970 to 2019. Now, just last year, 2019, the bank approved about $340 million worth in projects, and transportation was the dominant sector last year, with about 43% of those resources. And in fact, one large project, the Port Modernization Project for Kingstown in St. Vincent, that would have been the biggest project, with over $1 million going towards financing that project. So when we're looking at projects in the transport sector that the bank has done, as I mentioned before, you would see port infrastructure, and I just mentioned St. Vincent Port. The Montserrat Port has been another project that's been approved recently, and procurement for that has reached a fairly advanced stage. Smaller port work in the Bahamas and other countries as well. A main feature of the bank's work over the past years. Joanne, I'm hearing some feedback once in a while. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me?
We can still hear you.
Oh.
We hear you fine and clear. So
okay,
you can go ahead.
Good, thank you. Road infrastructure, that's, as we say, our bread and butter. Often there is and you'll see later, we'll be provided lots of detail for you to be able to see the types of projects that the bank finances. So we'll leave that with you. You'll get a sense of what's included in the projects that we do there. Airport modernization, Grantley Adams International Airport. At the moment, they're doing, that's the international airport in Barbados, of course, and the bank is financing the rehabilitation and expansion of the pavements at the airport, so resurfacing the runway and aprons and the taxiway as well, and providing expanded apron area for the development of further business at the airport. Feasibility studies and designs, and I mentioned sector studies. Now, the work that we do is always underpinned by activities such as climate risk and vulnerability assessments, gender analysis, and these things are cross-cutting across all of the work that we do. And this gets a sense of some of the things that are included in the water and sanitation sector projects that the bank covers. We're doing water supply projects at the moment in Barbados and the Bahamas. One is just wrapped up in Nevis. And you will again see in a short while work that's under preparation in Dominica and Grenada in that sector as well. Watershed management, you'll see, is also a feature of some of the projects, and work ongoing in St. Lucia includes watershed management activities. And institutional strengthening and capacity building, as we know, this is quite an important part of the strengthening the water sector in the Caribbean. Issues such as non-revenue water reduction, again helping them to let's say strengthen their climate resilience capacity through doing climate risk and vulnerability assessments for the organizations themselves or for the sector overall. Those types of things are features of our projects. In the water supply improvement project in the Bahamas, one of the consultancy services that's ongoing, or is out to, well, should be starting pretty soon, is a photovoltaic potential assessment. So for various sites across the Family Islands, the consultant will look to help the water utility there to maximize potential for using PV in their operations to reduce their energy, to make their energy usage more sustainable. The Water Authority in Barbados, of course, I'm saying of course, but the Water Authority in Barbados has also benefited from that sort of support from the bank, and that will make a big dent in their energy, or changing the profile, I should say, of their energy consumption. So just quickly move on to some of the projects, and you will get these slides, so I don't need to go through all of the details, but this one, rehabilitation and reconstruction loan after Hurricane Irma in BVI 2017. You'll see there the loan amount was about $65 million, and the components included infrastructure works, rehabilitation of roads, city fences, including slope stabilization work and so on. There's some building rehabilitation work. There's a goods component for supplying equipment for schools, furniture as well, and information and communication technology equipment for public sector facilities. On the bottom right of the slide, you will see some of the procurement opportunities that remain under that project. There's to be the construction or reconstruction of a ferry terminal. It's called the West End Ferry Terminal coming up, and we expect these to all come up pretty early in 2021, or most of them. The rehabilitation of some buildings, including the Magistrates Court and the Central Administration Building. And there's one consultancy opportunity that's likely to come up there, and that's again the Central Administration Building, and an AHVAC consultant is going to be required as heating and ventilation and air conditioning consultancy. I mentioned the Granny Adams International Airport project, and work there is well underway, but you'll see to the left what the components of the project included, or some of them, and to the right there's one consultancy that's left to be procured, and that is services to help to develop a fixed base operations policy and guidelines for the airport. Since many would know that is a key area of revenue generation in airports, certainly in our region, and in areas that generate a lot of private aviation business, general aviation business. Streetlight retrofitting projects have also been a feature of our lending over the past few years. So we've got a few of those that you'll see. This is for Jamaica, and there's a goods contract coming up for the supply and installation of streetlights and smart controllers. And the procurement method will be using the procurement procedures of the Jamaica Public Service Limited, JPS, the client, since they have been assessed and deemed to be appropriate to provide all of the, satisfy all of the objectives of the bank's procurement requirements. There's similarly an ongoing streetlight retrofitting project in the Bahamas, and we've got a number of opportunities coming up for the collection and disposal of used streetlights, for the conduct of the climate risk and vulnerability assessment, and for engineering services to design the communication infrastructure, develop an environmental and social management plan, and for certification and payment for the works. Another streetlight retrofitting project and advanced metering infrastructure as well in Suriname. And there's an opportunity there for the disposal of the used lamps. These would be the old lamps, of course, that would be taken down in order to facilitate the installation of the new LED lamps. So to make sure that those are disposed of in a manner that's consistent with best environmental practice, that's why you will see this as a feature of all of these streetlight retrofitting projects. Antigua and Barbuda, there was also a similar project approved as 2016, and there's a procurement opportunity there at the moment coming up for the supply of bucket and utility trucks. Here's one in Belize for the 7th power project, Key Kalka submarine cable, and this will be for the supply and installation of a submarine cable to supply electricity to Key Kalka to make that more sustainable. And you will see the amount of the loan and grant provided by the bank was about $6.8 million in that case, and there would also be some counterpart contribution to these projects, and that would be added to the amount of CDB financing that you see there. Also in energy, but again, intersecting with our disaster risk management portfolio, the rehabilitation and reconstruction project in Antigua and Barbuda. And this project was funded in large part through the UK SIF program. And you would see there a grant amount of about 2.85 million pounds sterling, providing the main financing for that project. So the components will include undergrounding the infrastructure for sections of the electricity distribution network, a goods component, including a hybrid solar systems on key public buildings in Barbuda, engineering and construction related services, capacity building and project management. And quite a lot of procurement activity is to come shortly, including that civil works for the undergrounding of electrical feeders, related goods, the solar PV work, and work for a reconnection support program. Similarly, work on an RRL for Hurricane Irma. Roadworks largely to come. Reconstruction of a bridge called Darkwood Bridge, some road reconstruction works, also some building reconstruction works. You'll see more details to the left, and furniture and learning materials, and some agricultural tools and equipment. Now, there's quite a lot of work going on in St. Vincent at the moment as well, and there are 3 NDM or natural disaster management projects I've grouped here. One from 2013, one from 2016, and Hurricane Thomas would have been 2010. So that financing would have been from 2011. So there's been quite a lot of infrastructure works, some done already and some technical assistance, but these are just actually a few of the opportunities which still remain under these projects in St. Vincent. So I encourage you to actually check our website with some frequency over the coming months as things step up in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The bank is just also now working on providing the the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Ministry of Works in particular, with some additional project implementation support. So we are likely to really see quite a lot of procurement activity for works coming out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines over the next while. There's also another project that we're working on in partnership with the EU delegation in Barbados to support the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in some additional work in the road transport sector. We've already advertised for some of the consulting services out of that for a project coordinator, for a consultant to undertake the design and supervision of some rural roads which are to be upgraded, and some institutional strengthening work for the road sector there, such as to design an asset management system for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So there's quite a lot of activity there, and hence the road works component for that particular activity. You will also see the opportunity coming up in 2021. Another St. Vincent project is the Sandy Bay Sea Defences Resilience Project, with financing from the bank of about $13.5 million. Infrastructure works comprising sea defences, about 730 meters, but not necessarily one continuous section. I think there are about 3 sections, and some river training and other related works as well. And that procurement opportunity we expect to see in 2021. In Dominica, it's sort of one of the older projects. There's been some changing around in the implementation of some of these projects. So this opportunity we expect over the next couple of months towards the end of 2020, the Layou Park Valley Road and River Training Phase 1 works. St. Lucia, we've got about 3 water sector projects going on in St. Lucia at the moment. This one, the 6 water project at View Fort. These are some of the opportunities which are still available for that. 2 goods supply contracts. There should actually be through an additional loan that we're working on right now. There should be also another consultancy opportunity coming up on this project, the View Fort Water Supply Development. 7th water project in St. Lucia. These are not very large contracts, but moderately sized contracts here, are pretty small perhaps, for national competitive bidding. These are for some spillway repairs and access road repairs at the John Compton Dam. You'll see that one has been going on for a while, so it's probably going pretty well. Energy efficiency. So perhaps Joseph is going to touch on some of these things as well. So not too sure. We've got in St. Vincent an energy efficiency project, which includes also some streetlight retrofitting, but also some building energy efficiency work. So there's some works opportunities which we expect to see coming up early in 2021 for the design of the design build for solar photovoltaic plant, as well as for the energy efficiency retrofits on government buildings. And now we get to some of the UK SIF projects. This one we are expecting to take to our board of directors pretty soon, over the next couple months. So the Philip Goldson Highway will see the rehabilitation and upgrading of about 125 kilometers of roadway. I know the Ministry of Works in Belize has advanced the procurement on this project. So you're not seeing opportunities pop up there right now, but there would still be like a couple social sector related consultancies which will be part of the project scope, which will become available. But in terms of the main works and the consultancy for the supervision and so on, the procurement for those activities has been well advanced. This one, Loubier to Grand Bay Road in Dominica, the upgrade of about 18 kilometers of road. And this will go to our board of directors, or well, the president and the board for approval next year in 2021. And you will therefore see arising out of this opportunities for works as well as for consulting services. There's also a water sector development project under the UK SIF in Dominica, and the funding from that out to the UK SIF grant is £24 million. That's likely to be presented for consideration for approval at the end of the year, and procurement opportunities likely therefore to come up towards the end of this year as well, so you can keep your eye out for that. Here's another transport sector one for Guyana. Linden to Mabura Hills Road upgrade. That's going to be about 122 kilometers of road works. And the UK SIF grant contribution to the financing of this project is in the amount of £53 million. Consulting services are quite advanced on this as well in terms of the design and feasibility studies. So that will be appraised in 2021, and the procurement opportunities for works and perhaps other consulting services that are recommended as part of the project scope will be available in 2021. Grenada has also got a couple UK SIF projects going on, consulting services. There's one in the water and sanitation sector. And so that's being implemented by the National Water and Sewage Authority, NAWASA. And there's one, the Western Road Corridor Upgrade Project. And through the Ministry of Works, we expect to see that come to appraisal as well in 2021, and the procurement opportunities become available next year as well. So just wrapping up, as I said, you can keep your eye out on CDB's website. There will always be lots of opportunities coming up for Suriname in the water sector. We've got a project for the design and well, yes, the design of some water supply systems, the upgrade of some existing systems, and perhaps construction of some new systems in the area of Nikiri and Paramaribo. So the consultants have been at work, but of course, COVID-19 has kind of affected the ability of these consultants to really do a lot of work on the ground, but nevertheless, they've started, and should everything work out well, then next year we would also have the opportunity to proceed with the investment works for that project. There's an ongoing water project in the Bahamas, as I said, so there are a few remaining contracts which are likely to present themselves under that project. We are just supporting Jamaica at the moment with a rural water supply project. The consultants are just about to start with that, which is likely to just be the first phase of some work there, and therefore the civil works part of that project procurement opportunities will present themselves in 2021. And I mentioned already our work on the new water supply, the water and sanitation policy and strategy work that the bank is doing. And I think we've already advertised for the consultants for that. And in fact, the requests for expressions of interests are to be evaluated shortly in that one. In the transport sector, you will shortly see an opportunity for consultants to help to do some work to make public transport in the region, in the borrowing member countries of the bank, to improve the sustainability of public transport. So that's another project that we hope to have approved pretty shortly, and that's going to be implemented by the bank itself. So there should be an opportunity for consultants coming up there over the next couple months. And in all of these countries, as I mentioned, other opportunities in the transport sector, other work that's going on in Guyana with a project called the Transport Sector Enhancement Project. So some rehabilitation work proposed at the Stelling at Parika, in one of the aerodromes there, and some other coastal protection work and so on involved there. So I think that actually gives you a good sort of an overview of what work is going on in the economic infrastructure division of the bank. And I'll end there and say thank you very much. And Joanna, I hope I haven't run over, or I hope I haven't run over too much, and available to answer any questions that I can. Thank you.
Thank you, William, and thank you for the thorough presentation and for really highlighting the opportunities that are coming up for everybody that's here to prepare for what's coming ahead and to really understand what are some of the circumstances that have made us kind of put a hold on some of the projects, but just to remind you that we remain committed to the region and that projects are moving forward. I want to welcome anybody that has a question to drop it on the chat or to raise their hand at this stage for William or for the procurement team. Okay, looks like we have a question on the chat. Is the bank interested in independent impact evaluations and/or evidence gap studies to inform investment? If yes, does the bank advertise these, or the organization should approach the bank with ideas? William, maybe you can help us answering this question on whether there have been independent impact evaluations used in informing investment projects?
Okay, sure. So there is an Office of Independent Evaluation in the bank, which just as its name says is pretty much independent, certainly independent of the project's department. However, they do, they're part of the bank, so they offer lots of support as we try to design our projects with good results based management approaches in mind. But that area of the bank, OIE, is responsible for the evaluation independently of the work that the bank undertakes, and they report directly to the board of directors on those evaluations. So for every project that the bank undertakes, pretty much, certainly all of the investment projects and all of the major technical assistance projects, all of the disaster risk management projects, we undertake project completion reports to seek to draw out lessons, and those are reviewed by the Office of Independent Evaluation. And they will sometimes also undertake evaluations of fund sources and sectors of swaths of the bank's work. So they have just now completed, it's the final report, I suppose, is going to be presented shortly. So it's substantially complete. An evaluation of the bank's technical assistance work over the last 10 years or or so. They've done evaluations, or the bank overall anyhow undertakes evaluations of fund sources such as the special development funds, which is a more concessional line of financing, to make sure that the objectives of the funds are actually met and that the resources are used efficiently in accordance with good practice, not just in the bank but across all of the multilateral banks, for example. So these are done by people typically who have a lot of experience working across all of these different agencies. So learning lessons is pretty much a huge part of how the bank operates and tries to inform and improve the way that it supports our member countries. So I hope in a way of help to answer your question. So while you will not see impact evaluations, since that was the term you used, advertised very, very often, you will from time to time see those opportunities advertised, and it will be the Office of Independent Evaluation that would typically be driving those types of opportunities.
Yeah, I can I can confirm that these opportunities for evaluations will be published through CDB's procurement notices, so that you can so they're all published in one space, whether it's a specific project or a wider evaluation for a particular sector or program.
I could also say, Joanna, though, and more closely related to the projects, there will pretty often, I suppose, be the need for monitoring and evaluation consultants to help to support the implementing or executing agencies in the monitoring and evaluation of projects, and those opportunities you will see pretty often through the channels that Joanna's just described as well.
Thank you, William. We have another question. What is the best way to present project plans to CDB for NDL and RRL? William, maybe you can help with us as well, just with the caveat that normally these requests come directly from the countries, correct?
Correct. So that's it. So when you see the NDM projects and the RRL, reconstruction and rehabilitation projects, those are typically public sector projects. However, there are two RRL projects that are ongoing at the moment that are supporting utilities in the aftermath of that 2017 hurricane season. So there is one going on with Anglec in Anguilla, and one going on with Domlec in Dominica. So the bank would have worked with those utilities in the aftermath of the events to craft RRL projects, but you get a sense of the nature of the instrument. It's really at a country level or large public sector infrastructure level to help them to recover and restore services in the aftermath of natural hazard events. And also, as I perhaps didn't highlight it, but with St. Vincent, one of the projects as well was, it was not RRL, it's actually proactive. So under the disaster management strategy and operational guidelines, which the folks in the environmental sustainability unit might have mentioned, there was also the option for proactive improvements to mitigate risk of damage from natural hazards. So that's also an option that the borrowing member countries have in accessing support from the bank in that regard.
Thanks, William. Do we have any more questions for William at this stage? Thank you, Margin. Okay, we'll hand it over to Chris, as we have only about 30 minutes or so left before closing remarks. So over to you, Chris. And thank you, William, for your presentation again.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Thank you, William. That was very even informative for me to see such a comprehensive overview of all the work that you guys are doing in EID. Let me just get my screen up on. There we go. Tell me when you can see it, Joanna.
Okay, it's on now.
You're seeing the presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, barely again, everyone, assuming you're in our time zone. I'm Christopher Strawn, Sustainable Energy Analyst, operating within the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Unit here at CDB. I'm happy to present a quick overview of the work and the role that the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Unit, formerly known as the REEU, plays within the bank, and a bit of what opportunities we have ongoing for private sector consultancies, mostly now and in the near future. So firstly, the REEU's primary objective is to implement the bank's energy sector policy and strategy. This was developed in 2015 and has the overarching goal of supporting the transformation of the energy sector to significantly increase energy security and sustainability, enabling economic growth. So the ESPS, as it's acronymized, establishes RE and EE as a cross-cutting theme within the bank's operations. And the main focus would be on promoting energy efficiency for more affordable and stable energy costs, establishment of the green economy, and also promoting renewable energy opportunities within the bank's operations for similar reasons. We also do provide energy infrastructure. Well, under the policy, it promotes the provision of energy infrastructure to provide cleaner, more reliable, and resilient power supply. And we also promote sector reform, good governance, and capacity strengthening towards achieving the above. So what we mean by a cross-cutting theme, this slide is meant to illustrate how energy efficiency and renewable energy can be a key element or a hub between several overlapping strategic areas of the bank, as well as its member countries. So from the more obvious areas such as energy security, availability, increased affordability, increased reliability and resilience, and more energy independence by utilization of renewable indigenous resources, as well as increased energy access and energy poverty, especially in rural areas and rural communities. We also work with the utilities to support a smooth energy sector transition towards more sustainable generation technologies, for example. And then less obvious sector transitions, such as the decarbonization of the transport sector and potentially manufacturing and other heavy industries. It's also, as one would expect, a key element in sustainable development goals and climate change agendas, supporting adaptation and mitigation strategies. SDG 7 in particular speaks to ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. So any discussion around or strategy around NDC targets or reducing carbon footprint, climate resilience, etc., are likely to include some discussion of sustainable energy initiatives. From an operational perspective, the Renewable Energy Unit, while energy was always a sector, power was also always a sector that the bank focused on and was present in supporting, the REEU was relatively recently established in 2015 to give a renewed focus on the sustainable energy aspects. It has been strategically situated under the Office of the Vice President in the operations area, which allows for strategic collaboration across several divisions and departments within the bank in order to facilitate collaboration and the cross-cutting theme, opportunity identification, and support across different sectors. So what we do is we provide renewable energy and energy efficiency strategy, instruments for financing sustainable energy development, a lot of technical assistance for capacity strengthening, institutional strengthening. As I said, investment project identification and preparation. So many of the projects that William would have touched on, we would have been, that had an energy element, we would have been at the front end of that, identifying any gaps and assessing where we could fill those with potential TA and assessments, or even before that, assessing opportunities, working with our member countries to see where renewable energy projects could play a role in their sustainable development and their economic infrastructure. A big focus of us is also on the regulatory and legal frameworks and supporting regulatory reform through institutional strengthening, consultancies, training, because we see that in order to really allow for a private sector-led development of this sector, we really have the challenge of an enabling environment, or creating an enabling environment. So that's one of our priorities. And as I mentioned, instruments, we also seek to mobilize resources from other development partners, such as we have done under the GeoSmart initiative, for example, where we've mobilized resources from the IDB, from the Clean Technology Fund, from the Global Environment Facility, from the GCF, and others towards geothermal development well, mostly, but also for capacity building and institutional strengthening. We also have some other programs, namely the Sustainable Energy for the Eastern Caribbean, which is supported from the UK and the EU governments, as well as CDB, and then the Canadian Support to the Energy Sector Fund, for example, which is, as it names implies, is funded through our Canadian government. And then hand in hand with that, we then would have to manage those programs and report on the development objectives and the sub-projects to those donor partners. As I mentioned, as William implied earlier, we would work very closely with several other divisions within the bank, especially EID, as once projects move to the implementation phase, it falls under the EID portfolio, where they have several capable operations officers who would take over the energy element of the projects and supervise the procurement for goods and works and the implementation, as well as the supervision of the implementation of the projects themselves. This is another illustration of specifically where a lot of our focus is. So we do capacity strengthening, both institutional and human, through workshops, certification programs, and study tours, expert assistance, awareness building, short-term consultant, project coordinators to strengthen, for example, the government's capacity to implement projects, or to do the preparatory work necessary for projects to move to implementation. So one example of that is on the geothermal side, for example, where we have a project coordinator mobilized in one or two countries to help the government move the project and to help with the different negotiations and other aspects. Again, we mentioned the investment project identification and preparation. So the assessments could include things like energy audits to identify opportunities for investment projects in government buildings, for example, schools, facilities. These would then have recommendations for implementation of modifications, which we would then hand over to EID for supervision. ESIAs, so environmental social impact assessments, we also procure consultancy services to execute these in preparation for a project moving towards appraisal and then hopefully implementation. Preliminary designs of potential solutions, and then general expert advice, technology assessments, sector assessments, things like that. So this mobilization resources, instrument design and development, business development as well. So we keep a close eye on the renewable energy developments globally as well as in the region, policy, best practices, technology maturity and pricing, and various then effective financing instruments that we could utilize and implement towards the ESPS implementation. So as I mentioned, we have the Sustainable Energy for the Eastern Caribbean program as one of our programs. GeoSmart initiative, which is mainly focused on geothermal development and de-risking the geothermal sector for the Eastern Caribbean countries, and the Canadian support to the Energy Sector Fund. So we use the technical assistance as a key tool for supporting capacity building and to meet environmental and social requirements. We have also, we have energy efficiency interventions, which I don't see listed here. So we would have done, as William mentioned, retrofitting of street lights. We have energy audits listed here. And then the capacity strengthening would also include creating an enabling environment through support for the regulatory and legal frameworks to allow for increased penetration of variable renewable energy technologies such as solar and wind. So we have several potential opportunities for consultancies. As you would see, all of these are in the TA realm, technical assistance that is. So just running down the list, we do energy audits. We have some plan for Bahamas and some other countries in the near future. Building condition surveys, which goes hand in hand with the energy audits. So we can assess then the condition of the buildings from a resilience perspective, and also the ability to implement the recommendations that may come out of the audits. Sustainable energy awareness and strategy consultancies. So this, for example, would be around the likes of geothermal energy development and kind of like marketing public awareness campaigns around specific type of developments. So we're doing, we have a certification program where we're supporting the certification of PV installers. We're running a pilot at the moment, but we have plans to roll that out to a larger number of our borrowing member countries. And this was intended to increase the capability of the regional workforce towards the implementation of these types of projects. Sector and technology assessments. So in the realm of marine renewable energy, battery energy storage solutions and systems, smart grids, and e-mobility would be one of these as well. So as we assess then what the options are for the region, it would be to look at the state of play in the region as well as the global technology available, and we keep on top of what is most appropriate so that we can best advise our BMCs. Specifically on the offshore wind, we're looking at doing a more detailed resource assessment to build on work that we did late last year and early this year, which was a high level assessment. So this consultancy would likely go into greater detail, looking at the real potential for deploying offshore wind assets in some of our BMCs. When I say offshore wind advisory, I'm speaking of an individual consultant to provide backstopping support to CDB itself, likely, to provide that expertise so that we can better advise our members of what the options are. T&D, so the transmission and design consultancy. Transmission and distribution design consultancies. We look for a firm to help with the development of more resilient T&D system designs. We work with utilities to ensure that we can support requests, but also try to provide guidance on what the best options for improving the electricity system as a whole is. Similarly, we would work with governments around electricity sector policy, regulatory, like I said, and legal framework consultancies. This is likely on a demand basis, so that's why we have as required, but this is something that we're keen to pursue. Geothermal advisory and consultancies. Again, this would be to advise countries and provide capacity and institutional strengthening for them to enter into negotiations with potential geothermal development companies, and ensure that they have the capacity to handle themselves or facilitate those type of discussions necessary. Consultant project coordinators. So quite often we would install or seek to an individual, as I mentioned, to oversee projects in the pre-appraisal or design phases. And we will look at individuals as required, and those opportunities would be advertised as you would expect. We will be in the market for a firm to develop integrated resource and resilient plans in the near future. This is on a demand basis, but I believe that we're looking to deploy resources towards this and hopefully in parallel assess the demand from the countries. So this would be helping with resource planning and electric utility system planning. And then we have an opportunity this year for the development of operational frameworks and training plans for the government energy unit. This is actually in St. Kitts, and I believe the procurement notice will be coming out within the next few weeks for this one. I feel free, this list was built by a number of persons, so I may not have all the details if there's specific questions on the opportunities, but I would invite anyone who may have questions to submit them by email, or if you think that you have the expertise that would fit, please make us aware, because it's more efficient, I think, to know where the expertise lies. So, and I think that's it. So this is the contact information. I tried to keep it short, so thank you very much for your attention. I hope to work with key private sector stakeholders towards a continuation of opportunity identification and implementing solutions for this dynamic and exciting regional sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for reminding our audience that we remain open to receiving interest from the private sector and for the provision of their services and expertise as we expand our pool of consultants and other suppliers, contractors that work with us in the region or on CDB finance projects. And we will have mentioned this in a couple other on the two previous webinars that we had. We do have a register of consultants available that we consult from time to time. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the register as well, so that if you're interested on registering your firm or yourself as an individual, feel free to also access the register. Do we have any questions for Chris at this stage? You can drop the questions on the chat, or as Chris said, he has left his, they have left the contact information for the renewable energy efficiency. Hello, yeah, Clive, do you have a question?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
We're requesting
Go ahead, Clive.
if a copy of the recording could be sent to us.
I will ask Michelle to share, to answer that question.
What we will do though is that the recording will be posted on the Project Calls YouTube channel, and at least there will be notifications sent through Project Calls of its availability. But if you are a subscriber to the Project Calls YouTube channel, I guess you will eventually see that it is there.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
On the share, yes, we will also provide PDF copies of the presentations that were shared here and in the previous webinar. Do we have any more questions at this stage? Okay, anyone else? Okay, Michelle, it looks like we don't have more questions for now, but just to, if there is any other information that you require, or a specific project opportunity that you are interested in, you can send us an email via procurement@caribank.org or through Project Calls as well, and Michelle will be sure to direct the question to us. I know that we have a pending answer for Eric. So as Doc said, we will get the information from our economics department and we'll get back to you on those numbers. Okay, so over to you, Michelle.
Okay then, thanks Joanna. And thank you everyone for those who have stayed on the call. One of the things that I would ask that you can do in the chat is probably if make some suggestions of any other topics or areas that you might want us to cover. At least that might be something that we can take into account and consider going forward. And just thank you to the CDB team for joining us again. I mean, it does take a bit of effort to try to put these things together. And certainly with what the workloads that we all have, I think many of us have probably realized that with COVID-19, things have gotten quite intense. So just thank you also to you who have joined us, because it does make a difference to us in terms of showing, trying to add value here at Project Calls, and also just knowing that I think we all would like to be able to have a sense as to what projects might be coming down the pipe that maybe we can better position ourselves for. So I really want to thank William and Chris for their presentations, because they really did give us great insight into the project opportunities that are and will soon be available. So thank you once again.
Okay, thank you everyone. Have a good day.
Many thanks.
Oh, we do, Monica, we will reach out to you via Michelle on your question.
Okay, thank you.